Good evening, students. So this is our second class on our spreadsheet application. So as I have already instructed all of you to create a spreadsheet application which looks something similar to this. The data may vary, all right? So it's not necessary that you must have the same data. So you can have any kind of data as well as your name and roll number. So for me, I kept this data for our own reference. So you can use any one of them. Now, today's discussion is all about the different types of referencing that we can do to a particular cell. So in between I'll be doing, for example, you see this computer is not coming up, right? So you can just double click on this arrow and here it comes the full thing, all right? So that's how you can do some adjustment. So these things I'll be doing in between so that the document looks good. So you see, in a spreadsheet application, there are various types of referencing. The first referencing that I'll be talking about is called your relative reference. So an example of a relative reference, before we can understand this, is that, see, if I click on any cell, it has got an address. So for any cell, the address is always the column name. The column names are the vertical lines and the horizontal lines are your rows. So you can see age and you can see 18, right? So that's what the name of the column. So this referencing right now is an example of a relative reference. So how does it makes an impact in an application? See, if I want to calculate the total mark, Excel or so-called your any spreadsheet application is meant for doing the work automatic for you. You are not, for example, if I want to add up these marks, all right, I'm not going to take out a calculator, add 25 plus 30 plus 35 plus 40 and then write it over there. Then again, I'm not going to do the same thing. Similarly, so in Excel, in not Excel as a spreadsheet application, what you can do is that you can use this formula bar for adding these formulas. So how do you do it? You just click on this formula bar. Every formula has to start with an equal to, right? If you do not give equal to, then it is whatever you will be typing over there, it will print exactly the same thing in that cell. So you can see that the cell I selected, now I equal to. Now what I want to do is that I want to add 25 plus 30 plus this one. Now what I can do is that I can say like this 25, right, then plus 30, right. So if I do it, then whatever the sum comes, see, if I press enter, so there it is 55, right. Now next time I drag, it will be 55 for all of them, all right. See, how did I drag? Click here and I have to select on this icon and I have to drag it. Now 55, why? Because for every one of them it is 25 and 30. So that's what we don't want. We want the actual calculation. So what you can do is that give equal to again, and you, if you know the cell value, like this is E and you can see 5, right. I can type here E5, right. See, this cell is selected, right. Then similarly I can say plus, all right. You just have to click there, it takes F5, right. And then again plus this one plus this one, done. So these are the marks that I want to add and I press enter. You can see that it calculated 130. If I click here, it tells me which cells it has added, all right. Now this referencing here, this is what is called a relative reference. Why relative reference? Because if I click on this cell and I drag it all the way till the last one, all right, then you see it automatically calculated this one. Now see, if I click here and I see it took this one, the first one what we did is that we took this, but the moment I brought it down, the formula relatively changed as according to, because it relative to this one, it is changing to this one, all right. So that's why this kind of reference is called a relative reference, all right. Now in some cases, let's say I want to add something, let's say I want to insert a cell, okay. So you see, I told you before that you, if you want, you can practice the same thing in your so-called mobile version of this WPS spreadsheet application, but it will be a bit different how you add the rows. But in this is a desktop version of the spreadsheet application. So if I want to add another column to it, select this, right click, and I say insert column, one column, right. So I click on this one, so there it is, all right. So let's say I have something called a grand total, right. So I want to do grand total, but what I want to do is that I want to have this grand total. I have a cell here, let's say I give sports marks to everybody, okay, but I'm giving a fixed one, okay, sports marks, all right. and what I'll do is that I will give all of them, let's say 100 marks for everybody. All right, so what I'll do is that I click here. All right, so this total is 130 plus that 100 marks, right? So again the same way, click on this one, click on equal to, select this cell, it takes automatically I5. All right, then I say plus, shift plus, and then you click on this 100, right? So now what happened is that this one took this. So can you see this values, it is at highlighted that these two will be added, right? So I press enter, right? So see, 130 plus 100 is what? 230, right? Now if I drag it all the way down till there, now notice that this one is actually, what should be this? 156 plus 100 is what? It should be 256. 182 plus 100 is 282. But that's not happening. Why? Because if I click here, see, when I click this and I click, I get this cell and this 100. That's correct, right? But if I click on this one and I click here again, now notice it took this cell and this is 0, right? So 156 plus 0 is, so it is taking 156. Similarly, if I click here, so next cell, can you see it has changed relatively with this one also? That's what we don't want in this formula, right? What we want is that this value should change, but this one should always point to this 100, right? So that means this C25 should remain constant for this formula over here, right? For that, how you can have it by using something called absolute reference. Now to have an absolute reference, you just have to press dollar before the column name and a dollar before the so-called row name, right? Then I press enter. The formula remains the same, right? Now I drag it again all the way down there, right? Now see, this was 156, now it has become 256, 182, 282. That means it is adding 100. How did it do it? See, if I click here, now notice this one is a relative reference, nothing has, no dollar sign over here, but this one is an absolute reference, so it is always referring to this particular cell. So in this kind of scenario where you don't want the cell value to change when the formula is dragged, so if you don't want that, that's what is called a relative reference. To two very important types of references, absolute reference and a relative reference. There is one kind of reference that is called mixed reference. A mixed reference is such that it can, you can have, for example, if I have equal to, I'm just giving an example, like let's say I took this, okay, G8. So you can, like, if you look at that formula, I put a dollar before the column name as well as I put a dollar before the row name also, right? So this is called a relative, sorry, absolute reference. But a mixed reference means what? I may have a dollar only in the so-called your column name, but there is no dollar in the so-called your uh, row name. That means what? The column will remain fixed, but the row will keep on changing. So this kind of reference is called a mixed reference. Why? Because it's a mix of absolute reference and a relative reference. Unlike in this case, this is a total example, this one is a total example of a relative reference, and this is a full example of a uh, sorry, this is an example of a absolute reference and this is an example of a relative reference. Now there are many ways that you can implement this concept. Let's say I take an example where I want to do some multiplication. So if you want to add a new spreadsheet to your current one, just click on this one, right? So if I click on this, so let me just escape it. Okay, now I click here. So there is a new spreadsheet. So I'm not doing anything in the old one. So here is a new one. So let's say I have one. Okay, let's say two. Okay, and here also I have, let's say I do it like this, one, and here I have, right? Now what I want to do is that I will select both of them, and I want you to practice this in your WPS office in your mobile version also. All right, so let's say I drag it till 10, right? Now what I do the same thing, select both of them together and you drag it till maybe 10 itself. All right, now I want to do a multiplication table. Multiplication table is what? 1 into 1 is 1, 1 into 2 is 2. So similarly 2 into 2 is, this one should be 4, right? This is 2 into 3 is 6. So this way how it is. So if I do it very simply like this, all right, if I say this cell, all right, into uh, multiplication into this one, fine, and I press enter, see, 1 into 1 it works fine. But if I drag it all the way down over here, So see, it doesn't work like the way it should be, right? But if I have for example, if I delete it, right, and if I drag it all the way till this one, it also doesn't work. So it's not finding the exact answer that I want, right? Because this is a problem of so-called your mixed reference. So let me tell you how I can do it. I will just make it, and I want you to analyze this one. So what I'll do is that I put a dollar before it, all right, dollar before the C. After the multiplication, I'll put dollar in the row of the second cell reference, right? So I press it. Okay, now I drag it. Oops, I made a mistake. Just wait, I made a mistake. Yep. So this one will be a dollar, this will be because the cells are changing relatively to that. So I put a dollar here, and I will remove this, and I press enter. There it is. Then I drag it all the way till here, right? Now I drag it all the way till here like this, right? Now you can see that it has created the formula for me. Means any cell, like for example 5 into 5 is 25, this one is 2 into 4 is 8. So this one, so the first cell was very important, right? So this is the formula that I have used for creating the multiplication table by using something called a mixed reference. All right, so there is also another one that is called a range reference. Okay, a range reference, I will, okay, let me show you. All right, for example, I have calculated this sum over here, right? Let me come back again here, right? So I have calculated this sum, right? So I could have done it this way also. There is already predefined function called sum, right? So now what I'll do is that I want sum of English till, can you see that I have dragged it till this point? All right, now see, it says English till this computers, right? E5, that is English, E5 colon H5. H5 is this one, right? So this, when you have a colon in between, that is what is called a range reference, and this will work the same way. You can do it that way also, you can do it this way also, right? But this is an example when you have a colon in this one. So this is what is called a range reference. So these are the different types of references that you can have in a spreadsheet application. One is, first one is relative reference, then we have something called absolute reference, then I talked about something called your mixed reference, and finally we talked about something called a range reference. So you can, I'll put up some questions again after this video, so in your classroom, so you can answer to this by looking at this video tutorial. Thank you.